man te vinden, dan scheiden ze er weer van.
Wat ze gemeen hebben met elkaar is dat die mannen allemaal toch onbereikbaar zijn. En niet geschikt zijn als partner.
Ovidius schreef ooit: veel vrouwen smachten naar hetgeen ze ontsnapt. En stellen geen prijs op hetgeen ze wordt aangeboden. Je zou bijna denken dat hij gelijk heeft. Maar waarom? Valt het allemaal terug te voeren op hun jeugd? Of is er ook nog iets anders aan de hand? Wat gaat er eigenlijk om in jullie hoofd? Een vrouw die zich enorm verdiept heeft in de liefde is Helen Fisher, Amerikaans. Het bijzondere van Fisher is dat ze letterlijk een kijkje heeft genomen in de hersenpan van verliefde vrouwen en mannen. En daarmee waagde ze zich ver buiten haar eigen vakgebied, de antropologie.
But there are some very specific things that occur when almost anybody falls in love. And the first thing is that a person takes on special meaning. As a truck driver once said to me, he said, the world had a new center, and that center was Marianne. This person becomes the very center of your universe. And then you begin to focus your attention on them. You can remember every single thing that they said at a coffee break, at work, the way they got off the bus. The rest of us, you don't remember what we said, what we did, what we're wearing. But the minute details of the person that you're in love with begin to have a life of their own. And, of course, the intense elation and giddiness and euphoria and sleeplessness and often loss of appetite and incredible mood swings, perfectly wonderful feelings of bliss when things are going well, and then despair and rage and sorrow when you don't get an email or he doesn't call. Or romantic love is so intensely powerful, and I think that it is so powerful because it evolved as one of our basic mating emotions. I think that we've evolved 3 different brain circuits for mating and reproduction. One is the sex drive, lust, the craving for sexual gratification. The second is romantic love, that elation, giddiness, and euphoria of first love. And the third is attachment, that sense of calm and peace and security you can feel with a long-term partner. And I think that romantic love has a very specific purpose. The sex drive evolved to get you out there looking for anything at all. And romantic love evolved to enable you to focus your mating energy on just one partner at a time, thereby conserving mating time and energy. And then this third a brain circuit, attachment, evolved to enable you to tolerate this individual at least long enough to rear a single child together. So romantic love had important evolutionary purpose, which is to draw people strongly together and keep them together long enough to inseminate and start the process of raising babies.
Mag ik wat vragen? Misschien heel kort. We maken een programma over foute mannen.
Ja. Dan loop je een hele hoop, zeker.
Ja?
Ja.
We bedoelen mannen waarvan je weet, daar moet ik niks mee te maken hebben.
Ja, waarvan je weet dat je heel erg verliefd op zou kunnen worden, maar waar je niet verliefd op moet worden.
Want het is niet goed voor je. Om wat voor reden?
Daar heb ik al een keer ervaring mee gehad. Eentje, ja.
Kunt u iets daarover vertellen? Hoe ging dat? Wanneer was dat?
Oh, dat was voordat ik met mijn man, waar ik dus nu in getrouwd ben, voordat ik die ontmoette. En dat was een manier wat heel spannend was. Dat was ook erg leuk, maar van erg korte adem. Want ik wist dat het niet goed was.
Wat maakte hem zo spannend?
Omdat je weet dat iemand niet helemaal 1000% voor je gaat. Maar 900%. Of net dat kleine stukje waar je dan... net die vinger die geeft, zodra je de tweede vinger pakt, trekt hij terug.
En dat maakt hem spannend?
Nou ja, spannend. Je voelt het iemand aangetrokken, daar ga je mee om.
Ja.
En ja, dat maakte hem spannend. Hij was een spannende man.
Vrouwen die willen dat een man voor 1000% voor ze gaat. Maar ook weer niet. Wat willen ze nu eigenlijk?
Ja, die prins op het witte paard die moet wel heel veel kunnen. Hè? Die moet een leuke, aantrekkelijke kerel zijn. Die moet mooi zijn, die moet succesvol zijn, leuke hobby's hebben. En hij moet een ideale vader zijn. En hij moet ideale schoonzoon zijn natuurlijk. En hij moet dan ook nog eens een keer heel leuk zijn in de relatie. En alles aanvoelen. Nou, die bestaan gewoon niet.
Waar het dus kortweg op neerkomt, is dat veel vrouwen tegenwoordig buitensporig hoge verwachtingen hebben van een relatie. Of van een huwelijk. Dat is wel eens anders geweest. Tijd voor een historisch verhaal. Ook weer in Amerika.
For most of human history, love and marriage were not thought to go together. In fact, it would have been considered rebellious, a kind of personal treason to want to marry somebody just for love. In ancient Rome, a wedding night would be essentially a rape. Women were exchanged like cattle. Love really changed when courtly love came into favor in the Middle Ages. The knights who were returning from the Crusades brought back with them the idea of courtly love, worshiping women from afar, idealistic love. After all, courtly love had to do with strangers. And they would meet their beloved and they would talk about marriage, but the truth was they really didn't want to get married too soon because they needed to keep that powerful, lusty infatuation going. And the best way to do that is to be naive, is not really to know the person very well or have spent a lot of time together, and then they could fantasize about them. When we don't know someone very well, we can imagine them as a fabulous creature, a little bit unknown to us at the moment, but when we get to know them, they are going to be magnificent. That may not be true.
This is the moment, this is the day, this is the moment when I know.
Ik vind het op zich wel raar. Ik vind die meer. Het is heel chic.
Waarom is hij de gelukkige?
Ik kan niet precies uitleggen waarom, maar het gevoel dat er meteen al was eigenlijk. Ja. Hij is humoristisch, hij is vrolijk, hij is heel erg lief.
Hoe hebben jullie elkaar ontmoet?
Via de sport. Zomaar gewoon, boem, klik, het was raak, zeg maar.
Why him? Why her? Why do we choose the people that we do? There's many biological reasons and there's many cultural reasons. I think some of the basic cultural reasons are the most outstanding. Proximity. Simply being near somebody is essential. The second is timing. The perfect person can come into a party and talk to you all night, but you'll hardly notice them if the time is wrong. If the time is right, he or she may just trigger that brain circuitry and you'll immediately fall madly in love. So timing is important, proximity is important, but most important, I think, is what we call your love map. And what the love map is it's a basic template in the brain. And as small children, you grow up getting used to your father's temperament and your mother's artistic skill and your brother's sense of humor, and you very intricately and unconsciously build a list of characteristics you're looking for in a mate. And it's a very subtle list. For example, I have a girlfriend who had an alcoholic father, and as a child she got used to the chaos around the house and all of the unexpected things that happened. And she grew up to resolve she would never marry somebody like dear old dad. And she didn't. But instead she married a very unpredictable, chaotic artist who was up all night doing crazy things. So we carry in us almost thousands of subtle... You can walk into a room and see 4 men in the room, all who are dressed in a way that is attractive to you, all who carry themselves in a way that's attractive to you, all who come from backgrounds and have jobs that are appealing to you. And 3 out of the 4 you find are extremely nice people. But the 4th is somebody that you immediately fall in love with. And it's because somehow that person has linked in to your love map. This is one of the reasons that you can fall in love with the wrong person and fall in love with the wrong type of person over and over and over again.
Eens even kijken of de dames zich hier ook van bewust zijn.
Ken je dat verschijnsel?
Ja, ik ken het wel, ja.
Heb je zelf wel eens ooit iets mee te maken gehad?
Ja, vaak.
Ja, vaak. Ja. Vertel eens, op wat voor type foute man val je?
Nou, ik val helemaal niet op foute mannen.
Maar je komt er achteraf achter dat die fout was?
Ja, dat is inderdaad gebeurd, ja, achteraf.
En wat, zie je al een patroon daarin?
Liegen, bedriegen.
Liegen, bedriegen.
Ja. Ja, daar gaat het eigenlijk om.
En hoe zien ze eruit vooral?
Ja, wel leuk altijd,
wel
natuurlijk. Ja.
Mooie mannen?
Ja, dat wel, hè?
Ja,
Toch?
mooie mannen. Het zijn meestal mooie mannen.
Meestal mooie mannen, ja. Die zien er meestal goed uit.
Ja.
En hoe werkt dat in je hoofd?
Ja, dat gaat vanzelf.
Ja, dat gaat gewoon vanzelf.
Nee,
Dan denk je een
maar-
leuke man en dan denk je van nou, dat is gewoon leuk. En ja, je gaat er dan voor, zonder eigenlijk bij na te denken.
Ja.
I wanted to know what happens in the brain when you fall in love. We always feel this elation and we feel this obsession and we know we're focusing on the person, but what goes on in the mind?
There's a chemical, an amphetamine-like chemical that is released in the body when we are infatuated. It feels like we're on the best roller coaster ride of our life.
And so I and my colleagues decided to put people into a functional MRI brain scanner and scan the brains of people who had just fallen madly in love. So we've now done that with 17 people. And indeed, we've found some really striking parts of the brain that light up when you look at a photograph of your sweetheart. And the two most important findings are that a tiny little part of the back of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, it's a part of the brain that makes dopamine and then sprays dopamine all over the brain to many parts of the brain. And dopamine is a natural stimulant. Dopamine is associated with novelty and with focused attention and with elation and with sleeplessness and loss of appetite. And it's that chemical that is being spread around the brain when you fall madly in love. And that chemical goes to a lot of areas of the brain, but one area that became extremely active with us is the caudate nucleus. This is not part of the emotion system. I had thought that romantic love was an emotion, but as it turns out, I now think that it's a drive, a basic motivation, because this caudate nucleus is an enormous organ in the brain. It's almost as large as a shrimp. It's almost C-shaped, and it's really close to the very center of the brain. And it's almost the motor of the mind. It's the part of the brain that gears up when you are motivated to win a reward. It's part of the basic reward system of the brain. And so what happens when you fall in love is that this reward system gets cooking, and dopamine, this liquor of intense ecstasy, begins to spray, and you are totally motivated to win life's greatest prize, a beloved. Emotions come and go. I mean, you can be angry in the morning and then you're not angry an hour later, but a drive is something that keeps on going. When you're hungry, you stay hungry. When you're thirsty, you stay hungry. When you have the maternal instinct, you month after month want to have a baby. The craving for salt, there's many drives. And when you fall in love with somebody, it's very hard to control this. You continually want the person, you crave them, just the way when you're hungry you crave food.
Zou dat de reden kunnen zijn waarom ze zeggen dat liefde blind maakt?
Ik weet niet of liefde blind maakt, want ik vind verlangen maakt blind, denk ik.
Maar verlangen en liefde hebben toch alles met elkaar te maken?
Ik denk dat iedereen verlangt naar liefde, naar een mate van intimiteit met een ander. Maar dat verlangen kan ook heel erg ingegeven worden door afhankelijkheid. En als er een hele grote mate van afhankelijkheid speelt, dan wordt een enorm verlangen opgewekt en dat maakt blind.
Hoe ziet u liefde als een vorm van verslaving?
Nee, ik zie liefde helemaal niet als een vorm van verslaving. Ik zie wel verliefd worden op foute mannen. Dat zie ik wel als een verslaving. Maar liefde zie ik als iets moois, iets prettigs. En ik heb daar door de jaren heen steeds minder romantische opvattingen over gekregen. Ik zie de liefde als een hele goede kameraadschap. En ik zie liefde ook vooral als partnerschap, zie ik meer als een keuze. En waarbij liefde een onderdeel van die keuze kan zijn.
There's definitely chemistry to romantic love. And I think that it's an addictive drug. All of the addictive drugs are associated with elevated levels of dopamine, and romantic love is associated with elevated levels of dopamine also. Also, romantic love has the 3 primary characteristics of drug addiction. Tolerance. The moment you begin to fall in love with somebody, you want more and more and more of them. You crave them when they're not around. Withdrawal symptoms, when they leave you or don't call or write, you feel sorrow and craving. And also relapse. When somebody breaks up with you, it can be 8 months later and you'll hear a song that reminds you of that person. And sure enough, you want to go back and call them again, just like drug addiction.
De foute man.
De foute man, ja. Je kent het wel, hè? Toch?
Ja, ik ken het wel. Maar fout kan ook weer heel leuk en aantrekkelijk zijn, geloof ik. Maar...
Heb jij wel eens iets mee te maken gehad?
Met de foute man, hè?
Ja.
Zat, ja.
Kent u één vriendin van u die daarop valt?
Ik ken wel een vriendin die daarop valt, ja.
En waar valt ze op?
De zogenaamd goed geklede man.
Aha.
Die dan vaak met foute dingetjes bezig is.
Wat voor foute dingetjes?
Nou, een beetje ondeugende dingetjes.
Wat voor ondeugende
niet helemaal zakelijk eerlijk en dat soort dingetjes. Maar ja, dat zijn toch wel spannende mannen ook.
Ja?
Over het algemeen.
Op wat voor type foute man viel je?
Even kijken. Ja, jongens die toch aantrekkelijk waren. En bijvoorbeeld al een vriendinnetje hadden of zo.
Ja, toch wel?
Ja, toch wel, ja.
Dus je wist...
Onbereikbaar weer,
ja. Dus je begon met iemand aan een soort verkering, aan een amoureuze verkering, terwijl je wist dat hij een vriendin had.
Slecht, hè?
Very regularly, if you are going to sustain romantic love for a long time, it's because there's a barrier in the relationship. We all know, both men and women, who will stay in a relationship that's really not good for them because for some reason the partner cannot return their love. They're either married to somebody else, they're married to their work, they're traveling constantly, they're not terribly interested in this person, and yet the individual, both men and women, will continue to love this person extremely passionately and try over and over, sometimes for years, to win this reward. And it is certainly in part, I think, because when there's a barrier to the relationship, the brain just amps up this dopamine system to win the reward, and you just try harder.
Ah, the sweet, uncomplicated satisfaction of the younger woman. Some say I'm an expert on the subject. Guess that's because I've been dating them for over 40 years.
Every culture has its own ideals about love. In the Western cultures, obstacles are extremely important because they get you excited and make you race forward. You are pursuing the one you love. It's going to be just around the next corner, and then you're going to be free to run away together and live happily ever after. But oh my goodness, there's a big river in the midst of it, and you have to cross it, and there are people after you. This is what we see in films. And that certainly keeps your pulse going, gets you very excited. So that is one ideal, that it can't really be love if it isn't traumatic, or it can't really be love if you aren't in danger.
As it turns out, barriers intensify romantic love. We call it the Romeo and Juliet effect. In fact, I coined a term for this in my book, Why We Love, which is frustration attraction. When you're frustrated, you just try harder. And as it turns out, the reason you try harder, the reason you feel more elation, more focused attention, more craving for this individual, is because these dopamine cells in the ventral tegmental area of the brain, when the brain begins to realize that this reward is slow in coming, those dopamine cells just pump harder.
What's really going on, I think, is the thrill, the raw, on your nerves thrill of not knowing if you're going to live or die, and if this is going to be the only moment of your life that has any meaning. That's pretty exciting. And if you add that to an underlying quest for love, you have a very intoxicating potion that you're drinking. And sometimes people do this on purpose. They choose inappropriate people. They go in for thrill-seeking and violent sports, but there are also thrill-seeking and violent partners that you can pursue. All of that, just to heighten the flames.
Your pants, please.
Ladies first.
Our movies, our love songs, our novels, our plays, all focus on the excitement of romantic love. And when you and I think about romantic love, we think about that excitement. That's what we remember. And so if the movies were to show men vacuuming, we wouldn't associate that with romantic love. We would associate that with attachment. And most movies are not terribly interested in attachment. They're interested in arousal, arousing your metabolic system. And so they're going to go for the most arousing things that the human animal knows about. And those are war, death, and passionate romantic love. I read a line from a poem which said, "We've been lied to by our love songs." And indeed, we are lied to all the time by our movies, by our love songs, by our novels, by our books, promising this eternal ecstasy. And yet, we all discover during the course of life that that doesn't happen. Nor does one really want that to happen.
Yeah. Give him an aspirin, metoprolol, 5 milligrams, and hang a nitro trim. Mr. Sanborn, did you take any Viagra today? Mr. Sanborn?
No. No Viagra.
Okay, good. Just needed to be sure because I put nitroglycerin into your drip. And if you had taken Viagra, the combination could be fatal.
First of all, if you maintain that intensity of romantic love year in, year out, you die of sexual exhaustion, number one. You wouldn't get your work done, number two. You wouldn't get to raising your children, number three. And you'd be exhausted all the time. So, alas, once you do feel a sense of calm, we often do yearn for that excitement.
Spanning en sensatie. Daar wil je altijd meer van. Daar kunnen we nooit genoeg van krijgen. Altijd weer op zoek naar die nieuwe kick. Zo komen we natuurlijk vanzelf weer uit bij foute mannen.
Het is natuurlijk niet zo dat elke foute man een niet leuke man zou zijn. Maar ze doen soms hele leuke dingen, zijn heel creatief, zien er vaak heel mooi uit. Hebben een flitsend leven en als je daarop valt en als je dat leuk vindt, dan is zo'n kerel heel aantrekkelijk. Maar de keerzijde daarvan is dat hij ook vaak heel onbetrouwbaar is. Dus hij is best leuk als minnaar, maar niet als partner.
Ja, Marieke staat hier, ja.
We are devoted to the idea of marriage and monogamy. It's just that we believe in serial monogamy. The divorce rate is about 50% in America. And it's not that the people who get divorced don't fall in love passionately, head over heels, in a courtly love sort of way. Again, they do. They really believe in marriage. It's just that we've evolved to want to be married, to be devoted to a spouse, and to be hopelessly, deeply unfaithful. I wish it weren't so, but there we have it.
One of the problems in our modern world is this concept of till death do us part. Today, we tend to have a series of lovers and then one marriage and often 2 or 3 marriages, and we maintain our search for the perfect partner even into our 70s and 80s. So we have more of what we call serial pair bonding, a series of relationships than we did in past decades and past centuries. So people tend to assume that there's something wrong with modern women, that they don't stick with one partner. But in fact, as an anthropologist, when I take a look at hunting and gathering societies, you see this modern pattern all the time. Young girls in hunting and gathering societies will really even start at sex and love at around age 10. And they will form their first marriage in late teenage. And often that's a very brittle marriage that doesn't work. And then they break up. And during the course of their life, they may have 2 or 3 husbands. They may have several lovers between the husbands or even simultaneously with the husbands. So it has long appeared to me that the human animal is an animal that very regularly has a series of partners during the course of their lives. And millions of years ago, this was probably adaptive, because if millions of years ago a woman had a baby with one man and then broke up and had another baby with another man and then a third man, she would create more genetic variety in her lineage. So there's probably something in the human animal that makes us restless in long relationships. And in this modern world where women have more money and they're more economically independent and they're more sexually educated, it's quite likely that we're going to see more and more women have a series of partnerships.
For most of human history, women had to get married so that they would be supported. But now that women have economic freedom, they can choose whether to get married or not. And as a result, they can choose whom to marry. They don't have to choose somebody who's wealthy to marry. They don't have to choose someone with an extended family. They don't have to choose someone who is going to be worthy of their family. They can just choose to marry someone that they like, someone that they love. That's very, very recent.
Maar waarom blijven dan toch zoveel vrouwen bij een man die niet deugt?
What's so bizarre about romantic love is that you see people who are really abused by a partner, or stalked by a partner, or entirely rejected by a partner, but yet they continue to be passionately in love with them. You know, love can occur simultaneously with many other feelings. You can be really angry at somebody and still love them. You can be totally depressed that somebody's rejected you and still love them. The brain can do many systems can run simultaneously, and this is one of the big problems with romantic love. It's enormously joyous when things are going well, and it's intensely sorrowful experience of falling in love with somebody who doesn't love them or can't love them. And they want to know, how do I get over this? And I think you can get over it. A lot of people do get over it. And there's various ways to speed that process up. Foremost, I would recommend that you regard your feeling as an addiction. So throw away his cards and letters. Don't talk to him if you see him in the street. Don't go to the gym where he works out. Stay away from your drug of choice. Do novel things. When you do novel things with other people, you're driving up levels of dopamine and you're fighting off depression. So stay busy. Get up out of bed, no matter how hard it is, and do anything at all. Exercise is particularly good for you because it drives up levels of dopamine in the brain. Smiling is good for you. And keep moving. And eventually...
would they do without romantic love? Now that they know how excruciating it could be, I think they would tell you that they would not do without it. That they would stand in a very long line to fall in love all over again. Romantic love is a kind of violence. It's a benign, wonderful, necessary violence that we require to survive, but it does violently disrupt your life. many more expectations than people did in the past. When marriages were arranged, people didn't expect to fall in love and get married. They expected to get married, and if they were very lucky, fall in love with the person they had married. My goodness, now we want a perfect mate. We want someone who will fill all of our needs, who will understand unspoken needs, and we want as much freedom and opportunity as is humanly possible, but then additionally, we want to be fussed over and treated by men who are knights. We want all of it. We want courtly love, and we want complete freedom.
Isn't that an impossible combination?
Not an impossible combination at all. Why should women not want everything? Life is short.